Hello, this video is going to be on Algebra 2 IXL topic N2, evaluate rational expressions 1. Now the difference between this first topic N2 and N3, which is evaluate rational expressions 2, is that here you're going to be using whole numbers for your variables that you're substituting, whereas in the second one you're going to be using decimals and fractions. So let's review how to plug in whole numbers in order to evaluate rational expressions. Remember, rational just means that you have two numbers you're comparing, so like in a fraction. So whenever you have the word rational, that tells you you're dealing with fractions. All right, so here you're evaluating it when w equals 8. So let's go ahead and let's write out our our expression. W minus 9 divided by w minus 6, and it wants it in simplest form, right? So since w is equal to 8, and we're given that, we're going to go ahead and plug in 8 for w. And let's simplify this. 8 minus 9 is negative 1. 8 minus 6 is 2, positive 2. So there's no way to simplify this any further, so this will just be equal to negative 1/2. Negative 1 over 2 divided by 2. There's no fraction option, so let's see if this works. Yep, you just put the slash. Okay, let's try this one since there's multiple negatives here. So be really careful when you're writing this out. Make sure you include all of the negatives. Negative u minus 5 divided by negative u minus 3. Right, when you're replacing, here, let's do this in another color. When you're replacing u with negative 6, you need to make sure that you're putting that extra negative in there, right? So I like to put in parentheses so that we make sure we're doing the correct operation. So a negative 6 is the same thing as a positive 6 minus 5. And then here we have negative 6 again, so that turns into a positive 6 minus 3. 6 minus 5 is 1. 6 minus 3 is 3. So when you evaluate the expression for u equals negative 6, you get 1/3. This one's pretty similar, but a little bit different. So we would be plugging in a positive 5 for w, but these w's are both negative, and then you're adding to them. So let's go ahead and write this out and then substitute. Negative w plus 7. See if you can do this one even faster than me. Divided by negative w plus 8. And I'm going to substitute a positive 5. Wherever I see a w. Which would give me negative 5 plus 7. Divided by negative 5 plus 8. All right, a negative and a positive, you have to think which sign is bigger. Since the 7 is a larger number and it's bigger by 2, this would be a positive taken from the 7. Positive 2. And again, 8's bigger than 5, but since they're opposites, 5 of them would make 0 pairs, and there would be 3 positives left over. So this is equal to positive 2/3. All right, let's look at this next one. Here, we're substituting a positive 1. Let's try and just write it in here. Positive 1 and a positive 1. Remember, this is in parentheses. You know what? Let's just make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So this should be a positive 1, and this should be a positive 1. And so it's negative 1 plus 4. Negative 1 plus 4 would make positive 3, because the positive is bigger. It's like 4 minus 1. And then 7 times 1, since they're next to each other with no sign. So that'll give us 3/7. All right, here we have an exponent. So let's go ahead and do this one. So here we're plugging in a negative 1. And I'll rewrite the third power. And here we're plugging in a negative 1. All right, so what do we do first? First we do the exponents because there's nothing to do in the parentheses. So we're going to do negative 1 to the third power, which is still negative 1. So on the numerator, we have 2 times negative 1 divided by, and then we plugged in a negative 1 here, negative 1 minus 9, negative 10. So here we have negative 2 divided by negative 10, which negative divided by a negative is a positive. They cancel, and you can simplify to 1/5 because you can divide both of these by 2, and you know that because they're both even numbers. So we're going to write here 1/5. Okay, here's another one with an exponent. Let's keep going. Another one with the exponent, but here we have 2 variables to substitute. So let's do this one. All right, so here we're substituting negative 3 for r. Let me just write this one out. Negative r squared plus s divided by r minus 7. So I'm going to go one at a time. First, I'm going to substitute for the r value. So wherever I see an r, I'm going to replace it with a negative 3. So this should be negative 3 squared. And then here's an r, that's going to be a negative 3 also. And then wherever I see an s, I'm going to replace it with a negative 1. So this will be a negative 1. All right, so let's see. First I should do exponents. So negative 3 squared would be positive 9, right? But there's still this green negative that's in front of the parentheses. So that negative's still there. The negative 3 that's yellow cancels out with itself when you square it. So this will be negative 9. And then plus a negative is just like saying minus 1. Divided by, see, we have a negative 3 and then take away 7 more. Think of it as you owe $3 and then you owe 7 more dollars. You owe a total of $10. So this is a negative 10. Sorry, that's not a decimal, that is a 0. So this is negative 9 minus 1, which is negative 10. Negative 10 divided by negative 10. Well, anything divided by itself is equal to 1. So your answer is just 1. All right, this is pretty similar. Here we're multiplying because they're next to each other, right? Let's keep going. All right, this one's a little tricky because here you have 2 variables right next to each other. So let's write this one out. You have negative t plus 4 in the numerator. And in the denominator, you have negative 7 st, where there's no sign between them, so it's multiplication, plus 4. So wherever we see an s, let's substitute a positive 1. Oh, and look at that. We're also substituting a positive 1 for t. So let's just go ahead and do it all at once. Wherever you see a t, let's put a positive 1, s, positive 1, and t, positive 1, since they're both positive 1. All right, so let's see. Negative 1 plus 4 would be a positive 3. And negative 7 times 1, that's still negative 7. Times 1, still negative 7. Negative 7 plus 4, right? That's what this whole thing is equal to. So what's negative 7 plus 4? The negative's bigger, so it's negative. The difference between 7 and 4 is 3. So It's negative 3. And then 3 divided by 3 is 1, but there's a negative and no other negative to cancel with it. So that's just equal to negative 1. All right, this one's a little bit trickier because here we actually have to use the grouping, the parentheses. So let's go ahead and, I think this is spaced out enough that I can just write my answer in here. So let's see, y is equal to negative 2. So wherever I see a y, I'm going to write a negative 2 right here. So this is, oops. Try that again. This is a negative. So when I put in a negative 2, it's going to change it to a positive 2, right? Negative, negative 2. So it'll be a positive 2. And then z, I'm putting in a 3. So if I see z, I'm going to put in a 3. And here, 2. Okay. So on top, it's just 3 minus 10. Since this is a positive 3 and a negative 10, on top I'll have negative 7. And then on bottom, let's see, negative 2 plus 3 squared. Since this is in parentheses and there is something to do, I have to do it first. So it is positive 2 minus 3. It's negative 1. So really what I'm doing on bottom is negative 1 squared, right? Negative 1 times itself, well, that's just positive 1. And when you're dividing by 1, you're not really changing the numerator. It's just negative 7. All right, let me zoom out a little bit and see how high we are. So we're already at 85. All these are pretty similar. Just make sure you're following the order of operations, right? So first you have your grouping terms, like absolute value, or parentheses, or if something's in the numerator or the denominator, you can evaluate it first. And then you have your exponents, your multiplication and division, and your addition and subtraction. So whenever you see the word evaluate, that means like you're solving and you have all of the variables. Then you're going to want to make sure you're using the order of operations, right? And just remember you do multiplication and division and addition and subtraction at the same time from left to right. All right, good luck on N.2.